All right, hello everybody. Here with Sherry and Lee Patterson, Relationship Reinvented. Doing an interview with them. I have a blast. I had a blast. I spent a great workshop with them, and I spent a great weekend with them here. We did some lot of good work. We talk a lot. We discuss a lot of things about the twin flames, and I just having a little interview with them, and I like you to kind of like pick up some of the best bolts and nuggets from what they have to share with us. So first of all, when did you guys first realize the connection that you had as a twin flames?
Um, I think I was 2007, but you were
Yeah,
you were 2005.
yeah,
I felt something, but it didn't get stronger until 2 years later.
2 years later, what
hmm
about you,
yeah.
Sherry?
I knew when I saw him that he was different. The big love that I'd been looking for, but I was scared.
You were scared from what?
I just didn't want him to know me.
Mm.
What was the reason? A little fear?
A lot of
Uh,
fear.
a lot of
A
fear.
lot of fear. Yeah.
A lot of fear. What helped you
Yeah.
to overcome that fear?
Um, Having enough love for myself to allow him to get to know me.
It's huge. Yeah,
It's
it,
Yes.
big.
it yeah. I think for both of us that part because you nobody teaches you vulnerability. Nobody teaches you compassionate vulnerability, and it took us some time. I
Mhm.
mean, even from 2007, it wasn't until really with all the stuff that we went through, it really wasn't until 2012 that we really had a better understanding of each other
Mm-hmm.
and a better connection where we were allowing each other to be vulnerable and not attack each other in it.
Not attack each other
Not
into it.
I
attack
mean,
each
it's
other.
bad. When you're vulnerable, you're attacking yourself already. But,
Yeah.
sharing that with somebody in this connection is deep and powerful. And it brought us closer together. But it wasn't until we got final.
You got
Kind of
final.
like your video. When I
Yeah.
was watching your video, I was like, that's kind of where we were. We just reached that final period where we were like, we're done. And it was like a we're done, but it was like, we're done with the ignoring it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And making excuses and telling yourself, and then telling myself how she's thinking of me and how she's telling herself what I think of her, which is the hardest part of this connection. And,
Yeah.
that's kind of along the lines of what we do now, but it literally was really hard to do because, you constantly hear this voice in your head that's saying one thing, but you don't realize that that voice in your head is just translating what the energy and the vibration is
Yes.
bringing.
Mhm.
And, after we came together, we really kind of opened up with each other about a lot of things. And it really helped resolve a lot of that noise.
Did that lot of noise came in from the inner battle with the ego from within each other?
We both had dreams of fighting ourselves,
Yeah.
and the other person, in this connection was standing back watching. So the way I was before was fighting the person who I wanted to be or knew I was. And it came to the point where I had to let who I used to be beat me in the dream. And she experienced the same thing. And we were talking about it. And it's like you have this whole anger, guilt, and shame. And just like they all come and they all really want to fight you. And you let it fight you. The problem is we were fighting it before. And then we just laid down,
Just
surrendered.
laid it down.
You have to. If you don't surrender, you're not going to surrender in this connection because that battle I think for both of us was representing
Mhm.
our connection to ourselves
Yeah.
to show us what our connection was.
Sherry, what helped you to surrender?
Just deciding to surrender.
Just deciding to surrender
Just
is like
deciding to
enough, enough.
surrender.
If
Just
enough is
I've had
enough.
enough. I'm just gonna lay here and let you finish wearing my ass out.
Yeah, that's that part of the twin flames. So you guys keep the communication all the time when you guys decided to have this communication. Does any part of us was like the one blocks the other?
It, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, some of the blocks that you have, you don't know that you inherited.
Yeah.
coming into this connection. So when you're in this connection, it's like this big, huge light, and you think the other person is trying to trigger you like mom did or dad did, and you don't really look at it like, okay, no, they're kind of excused, but the person in front of me, this person I'm connected to, is responsible for all of it, and they could fix me. That was a challenge because literally you felt so beautiful and you feel so beautiful in this connection that you don't see that they're not the answer. They're just letting you find your own answers. Like, when you're in your head and you're hearing, well, she probably's not going to like this about me, or she's probably never going to forgive me for stuff that I've done, or she's, that kind of stuff. And then thinking that that's the energy she's showing me. And it's really never the case. We're so completely off the mark because I could say to her, well, I think that you think, and it's like, well, wait a minute. And she, I think that you think, where did that come from?
Yeah.
But that's this whole connection. You can't see past your thoughts until it's time. And you really have to be final with it's time.
It's time.
Yeah, because like she said, it was a lot of fear. And fear is going to sit there and just keep whispering in your ear, keep whispering in your ear what the other person's thinking. And it's never right.
It's never right.
No. Their
Yeah.
behavior is so different, isn't
Different,
it?
yeah.
The realization is so different than what you actually think. And when you finally reach that point, there's such this great healing in the connection.
Yeah.
And I think when we both came to that, like, she was married and had a baby and all this. And I was like, well, I'm never going to be with her. So I'm just not going to talk to her because she's chosen this. And then as soon as I realized that that was in here,
Yeah.
I started to realize, wait a minute, I'm connected to her regardless of who she's with, regardless of what their life is like. So I can either fight it and be bitter and be blocked, or I can just surrender and accept it. And it wasn't until I reached that, because you feel this whole total acceptance.
Yeah.
And when I felt that whole total acceptance, I felt free. Like I fell in love with her. I fell in love with the man she's married to. I fell in love with the child. I mean, it's like you automatically go, oh, because you're claiming unconditional love, but that's a claim that the mind is doing.
Yeah.
The mind doesn't understand that even though our vibration and frequency match, so that means you have permission to accept all those things. And we became great friends because of that.
Because of that.
Yeah, really, it was kind of like we would talk every night. Your husband knew. I mean, it wasn't like it wasn't.
Our husband knew.
Yeah, because we'd talk on Messenger, and he would laugh at stuff that we would talk about because you just don't see it.
Okay.
But my twin is she's very family oriented, so it really kind of expanded everything.
So Sherry, how did you tell your husband first of all about him?
Well, Lee and I were friends. I told him about him when we were dating, actually. I talked to him about this guy that I dated, and it was intense. Yeah, and then we started dating, and when he came back in the picture, I told him, I said, well, Lee contacted me, and he said, well, how's he doing? That's how he asked. How's he doing? I was like, I don't know, man. He seemed a little screwed up. And we started talking a lot at night through Messenger with a mutual friend of ours. So he sort of knew that we were talking.
Okay.
But we were just joking around and just being friends and with the other friend that we have. And, I would even show him, look, I would even show him, look at what he said. He ain't got any sense. You know what I mean? Or look what he just posted or something. And he would laugh. And, yeah, but we would talk about the connection sometimes. Like, you guys, you perk up when you're around him.
Yeah.
It's different. Yeah.
Can you just kind of with few words, how did your husband help you two to get together?
Well, he looked at you and said, why aren't you two together? You could see, it's hard to deny that. And it was really interesting because we were so open with each other and open with, I mean, all of us really kind of.
You guys become vulnerable,
We
basically
became
open
vulnerable,
of
and
the
then they
truth.
sat
Yes.
down and had a conversation. And then, of course, they have this 1-year-old child, so they're kind of like, well, this is kind of the way this looks.
This is unconventional.
This is unconventional. But it was kind of like, he's like, yeah, but, there's something coming from this that's actually, I can see that there's something more.
Yeah.
And, I can't stand in the way of that. I mean, this man has a big heart. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be that way, but it really does take a certain type of understanding you have to have in this connection to understand the connection.
And the connection helps the understanding too.
Oh, yeah.
The connection helps. When you see the connection, or when you feel it, when you're in the presence of it,
Yeah.
it's peaceful. And that it helps in decision making.
The decision
The
making.
decision making, yeah.
I tell you, if it weren't for the silence that we kept experiencing between us,
Yes.
I don't think it would have ever been felt.
So you think that the silence is one of the biggest obstacles that the twin flames has to overcome,
I would say
so they can communicate?
the way that I would say, well, you go ahead and say what.
Oh,
Because
okay.
I believe the connection is built in the silence. You just have to be able to hear your noise, and they need to be able to hear their noise to understand why the silence is there, because the connection was created in silence. It wasn't created without it.
Okay.
So for us, it was, in between those times when we were silent, we could feel each other. We could feel, God, everything. If you were eating, we could smell everything that each other was around. We could hear music that the other was playing. There was just so many different things. But then when it came down to when your internal voice, your inner voice starts to talk, it also just kind of waits for an answer or reply. And you're not realizing that the silence is the best part of that. Because if you don't have a response back, or if you hear another voice coming back, you think it's the other person. But this is a senses-oriented connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't run off of what you think.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to twin flames that in your position, like they were married? 90% of the twin flames out there, they're married or they're either in a relationship. What would you be giving us advice based of your personal experience?
Know the difference. Know the difference between connection and relationship. They're not the same thing.
Okay.
Is that?
That's definitely it. But most importantly is do not try to do it yourself. Let the universe guide your moves, and don't try to make it happen. That's what we tried to do more often than not, is we tried to make it happen. And instead of just letting go and allowing the universe to move us where we needed to be moved, and resisting that movement, right? It's just easier to allow the universe to, or whatever your source or guide is, to move you in the direction you need to go, instead of you trying to make the moves and make it happen in your time, in your way. Patience, and it sucks, and it hurts, and it's the shitty word, but it is what it is. The patience is definitely a big deal, because when you become impatient with the process, then you make moves that are opposite of what the universe would have you do, and mess it up. Mess it up.
The only thing I would add to that is when she's saying patience, patience is the doorway to removing time, not staying in it. So, you sit around and you wait, or you think you're just standing there waiting. There's a deal there where waiting is the most painful part, because you're waiting for something, but while you're waiting, you're coming up in your mind with what the future's going to bring. And you narrow down the possibilities of what the universe has in store. So the waiting aspect of patience is letting go of waiting. If you're waiting, you literally have made up in your mind what it's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to flow, how you're going to come together. you're coming up with all of these things without even realizing that is the wreck that is happening to you on the inside. But it's the gateway to realizing that the connection doesn't really care about time. The connection is timeless.
Timeless.
So
Yes.
the more you are not in waiting and you're in that patience, the patience that she's talking about is the one where it's just, I accept everything as it is. I accept that they're doing this or doing that. I accept their choices. I accept, and I even have acceptance for my non acceptance of things. And that's hard. But once you're in that space, everything changes. And you got to be ready for that because you think, okay, everything that you built up in your mind, everything that you've read, everything that you've gone out and researched, all of that, throw it out the window. Because none of those are your answers. Your answers are in here.
Yes. When you guys got awakened as the twin flames, uh, is there was anything to help you? You guys searching informations, anything that goes on?
We did. She was like, read this and tell me what you think. And I was like, wow, this is like, so this is a thing. Because, you spend your life independent,
Yeah.
and thinking you're not connected to anybody. And then when she'd stumbled across it and she emailed and said, hey, and she really kind of was out there like, I think, we've got this thing and here's and we need some, guidance or whatever. And, we get a thing back. Well, then you two aren't twins. What? Well, how do you explain?
You haven't talked to us at all.
Right. You just read an email and that's
Yeah,
the
right.
response we got. And good luck to you. Okay. It's like, and then from that point on, I think we were turned off from looking out there
Mhm.
because I think, there's so many different perceptions of things. You don't know whose perception you're jumping into. And the best to have is your own because you already feel isolated and alone already because when you come into your awakening, you believe in connection. And you look around and you see there's not very many people who believe in that.
Yeah.
And it's a very odd feeling, like you're ashamed to tell your family or friends about this connection. But that ashamed is also a block. You don't,
Uh-huh.
if you can't open up and share the connection with them, let alone the person you're connected to, you literally go batshit crazy. There's no getting away from it. But there's also the choice to go, you know what? If I just dumb it down and not really say the word twin flame and you just say connection,
Okay.
people can relate to that. And you've got to be open to realizing that it's not so much that they can't understand it. It's that the way that you explain it needs to be about connection rather than what the world thinks this is. And tell them what you feel inside. Don't tell them what you found about it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's again, it's a lot of this will keep you
Yeah.
blocked for a lot of reasons.
You guys decided to go ahead and help the people. You guys created the relationship reinvented. Could you say something about this?
We were laying in bed with 2011 and it was like it was like a heart child that we were talking about. And we were like, nobody's gonna believe half this. I mean, if you get the chance, we have our journey up, but the stuff that we went through to get here, relationship reinvented really was kind of like the powering part of our connection. And it's, reinvent yourself to reinvent all of your relationships because you don't realize what kind of relationship you have to yourself
Yeah.
until you can separate yourself from what you think.
Mm-hmm.
And this connection will do that to you. And when we were looking at that and we're like, wow, and then we were both doing a lot of blogging and writing and, it was really interesting because it was just more or less the words
Yeah.
on the inside of us
Right.
to each other. And then the inner dialogue we were having. And we didn't realize how many people out there have the same inner dialogue, but don't
Oh,
realize that it's a relationship or a connection you have to yourself. And that's really, we kind of made this group and we were talking to different people in different groups and relationship groups. And they were going, who are you guys? Where'd you come from? Because we would just literally point them back inside themselves
Yeah.
when they were complaining about their marriage or they were complaining about their abuse and all of these different things. And they didn't realize that the things they were saying were keeping them there.
Yes, that's the inner gel where they put
Hmm.
themselves into it. Um, as soon as I got awakened, I kind of like it took me like a 3 4 months until I kind of like publicly stated that she's my twin flame
Hmm.
on it. How long it took you guys to publicly state that you guys are in a disconnection, this twin flame?
2012.
Yeah, it was
12.
2012.
It's
Yeah.
2012. Um, 2012, we had our final separation. It was a big one.
Hmm.
It was a disaster, and it was beautiful. Um,
Oh,
um, it was messy.
Hmm.
There were other people involved,
Hmm.
and it was final. It
Yeah.
was final. And then we, yeah, if you watched our journey, you know what happened. But we had a special moment, and from then on, there was no denying it.
Mm-mm. There wasn't.
There was just no denying it. So we just went on from there, and we started more blogging,
More
but we
blogging.
started talking to people one on one at that point.
And I think when the final happened, the connection got stronger. I mean, it was to the point to where if I was eating something, she was telling me exactly what it was. If I was smelling something, she knew exactly what it was. If she was listening to music and singing, I could hear it. And, I could say, hey, you listening to this? And how did you know? I mean, it was like sometimes it was delayed, but sometimes it was spot on, right on time. And it just was something that when we were talking to people, we'd said, did you know anything like this existed? And people think, yeah, well, you see it, you hear about it in movies, and that. No, you don't realize that the human body is capable of this kind of connection. But we're all made of something that's much greater. And I think we became really comfortable just talking about it, especially since we had this really unique family now. Because her husband moves in with my brother, I move in with her. I mean,
oh
we're
wow.
raising. I mean, it derailed. It was like, and we were on a path that was unknown to
So
either one of
basically,
us.
you gotta help, kind of like from the family, from the universe, so they can basically finally understood
You
of who
wouldn't,
you are.
you wouldn't, in your heart that this connection can heal a bunch of different things, but you don't realize that it's going to heal everybody you're connected to.
So family trees, you also are you healing everything
Hmm.
by understanding this love, by exploring this love out to the world. Basically, helps not only you but also help everyone connected to you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it also helps remove the ones from your life that are bringing in the toxicity,
Hmm.
that bring in the negativity in that. Um, it's like it's like when you spin blood for the iron, and it separates, right? It separates you without you having to make those moves on your own. It separates you from the people in your life that are um, negative,
Mm.
that are toxic, that it eliminates.
It
They
eliminates
restrict
the.
you from
Yeah,
loving more.
yeah.
And
If you're giving your advice to your twin flames, what would that be?
look at the connection to yourself first.
That's important. Stay connected to yourself first, because if you lose that,
Hmm.
then everything else gets flushed with it.
If you're in your head in this connection, you're already in your disconnect. That's the big thing, because you can't tell yourself what another person thinks of you. You've been doing that your whole life. Now you got to practice. You got to unlearn that and practice something different, because that really will keep you stuck. We've
Mm-hmm.
seen it. We've talked to people that have been that way for over 20 years, and they've gone to the therapist, and the therapist give them, point, hey, you do these steps here, or you do this, or they prescribe them something. That's not what this connection is. You got to connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do your inner work.
You have to do
Yes.
the inner work, and sometimes that inner work is a challenge. We've talked to people who literally have talked to us for years, and they think that, well, I've done all this work for years. You've done all this work for years, but when are you going to do all the love? for years, because that's really what point you're trying to reach. And it's a really hard point to get to if you're still in your head.
Mm-hmm.
If you're still in your head, it will block you.
So when the connection got ignited, you guys did the energy exchange. Like Lee was inside of you,
Hmm.
and Sherry was inside of Lee. Now, what was that moment when that comes in? What did that create inside of you? Because the space there was, you usually guys are alone
Mm-hmm.
by yourself. There is
Mm-hmm.
nobody else there. Now there is
Mm-hmm.
two of you.
Now there's somebody invading
Yeah.
my soul,
Mm-hmm.
and the entire
It's like
essence of
licking.
my soul, and I don't, it was uncomfortable, but it was home.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
only way you can explain it. It was right,
Mm-hmm.
but it was uncomfortable.
Because right now the things that you usually keep it only to yourself, now you feel vulnerable because somebody know will get in that place where you are.
I
Right, and
remember.
I'm cool with staying there all by myself. That bringing him into the
Yeah, I think what was what was really beautiful, the puppy,
puppy's
yeah,
dreaming.
puppy's dreaming. Um, what was beautiful, I think, for me in November of 2007, I woke like that morning and was like, "What the hell is this?" And I could feel like this sexual energy, and I'm going, "What the?" And it was like there was like a sharp pain behind it, and I'm going, "What the hell?" But then I felt this breakthrough, and I was like, "What the hell is that?" So when I saw her, I could see a glow, but I could see a baby. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, "Okay, what is this? She's a witch. I don't know what this what part is this? What I don't understand what I'm seeing."
Mm-hmm.
And but then, of course, we went separate ways after that. But then when 2008, April 2008, I woke up at like 2:33 in the morning. I'll never forget it. And I looked at the clock, and it was like I couldn't move. And I could feel her heartbeat, then I could feel a tiny heartbeat inside my heart. And I'm going, okay, I must be having some kind of palpitation or heart attack. Not sure which one. But she woke up and she was thinking about me. And the baby was, the baby feels everything. So, of course, here comes Cameron, and we have like this connection as though it's like part of our connection. And it's unusual because, like,
Yeah.
Cameron choked. I'd like call her up. "Hey, what's going on?" I felt something lodged. And she goes, "Oh, Cameron was choking." And I'm going,
Yeah.
so I'm trying.
I exactly understand how you feel because my twin flame was pregnant when right after the awakening period
Mm-hmm.
into it. I sent her all the time love and peace while we were at work. Did you do that for her?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot. I was like, I always wanted to check on her. I always wanted to make sure she was okay. Because, she was definitely, I could tell that, she said, well, I can't carry a child to term. And that kind of had me more worried because I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they, the child came July 15th in 2008. And I was at work and I felt all of it. I even heard his name
Mm-hmm.
and was like, I said it out loud. And this guy goes, "How'd you know my middle name?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. It just popped in my head," not knowing that they had named the child the name. And I was like, wow, that's wow. I mean, there's things that just continually keep blowing your mind. And that's the point. Your mind needs to be blown.
Okay.
Yeah.
We did a workshop together. What are you guys gonna say a few words about that?
Oh man, it was magical.
I love every minute of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was when you have something that the universe brings together and everybody's willing and open to being vulnerable, you get great healing and you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel so alone that it changes how you look at everything coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And your workshop did just that. You and Kelly did a fantastic job. We were really honored to come and participate with you guys, but at the same time, everybody got something. It wasn't like we went there and we all facilitated. It's like we all walked away with something,
Right.
a piece of us, or some places in the heart that still needed healing. You just don't know what those things are
Mm-hmm.
until you're actually running towards connection. And being in a room full of people who are all connected is a very powerful thing.
Yeah. Well, Sherry, what would you give an advice to a masculine twin flame who hides?
Ooh.
That was never me. She wouldn't know how to answer it. Why are you laughing?
It's a big deal in a twin flame union, and communication is the answer. I mean, you've got to talk. You've got to talk about it. You've got to trust that the person you're connected to is going to love you unconditionally, because that's what we do anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's real hard. Even personally, it's real hard to put 100% trust into a human being, because even though we're attempting to be 5D beings in this 3D world, we're still human beings, so we still make human mistakes and we have human flaws. As somebody who's connected, I don't see his humanism. I just don't. um but it does seem like masculine energy, they do tend to not want to show vulnerability as much, right? um Man, as a feminine energy sometimes, and being a woman, we thrive on communication. We thrive on it, right? it's it's personal, it's intimate, it's sexual. Even how was your night, or what do you want to do today, anything, any kind of communication. How do you feel about this, or how did this go for you? In those things make us feel cared about and wanted, right? So when you come out of hiding and you begin to ask those questions, then what you get back is even more communication. How did you feel about this? What did you like about this? What happened when you were this age? And then you want to get to know the other person, because the other person wants to get to know you, right? It's coming out of that place of hiding, where you don't want anybody to see what's going on inside of you because it's dark and it's ugly, right? But what's going on inside of them is dark and ugly too, right? So it's a sharing. We watch this show, and it's the funniest thing, but it's so effective. And there's a couple on there, and they say, okay, we're really stressed out about this. Worst case scenario, you go first, right? And he goes first and say, okay, well, worst case scenario is we all end up in a ditch, and I can't get you out, and I don't, you know what I mean?
It's all going on.
This is all going on in my head. But once you expel that, right? Once you get that out and you're not holding on to it anymore, you say, okay, that's the worst case scenario. So that's over, right? We done spilled that, whatever, it's done. Now okay, how are we going to get through this? Now what are we going to do? Right? Now let's go. Now let's go. On the same page. Let's go.
The simplicity, I think, is really what she's saying. It's really, you got to be simple. We've actually been stuck in that, where the sexual communication was stronger than all the other forms of communication. And it would feel like we're using each other for sex, or that's what it's about. But there's an openness that happens in the heart when you connect in this connection, and it comes through sexually. And a lot of people are, well, that's what seems to be all they want. Well, your form of communication otherwise probably isn't as strong as that part of your communication. So it gets lost in translation. We went through that. We went through that.
Until then activated the soul.
It activates the soul, but there's a communication you have from that connection when your heart's open, and your head is just distant.
You guys unite the masculine and the feminine energies of each other. Would you advise the feminine to go ahead and look at her masculine powers inside of her, like making it the first step, or create the communication, open the communication? Would you advise the masculine to go ahead and be more soft, more passionate, more patient? What was the battle in there?
Getting the masculine to open up about just anything that was that was hard, right? Because there was a lot of history there with, I don't want you to know me.
Yeah.
I don't want you to know me. But I, whew, I don't know about what was. I refresh my memory on the question because
It's
there's a way I need to articulate this
the
answer.
masculine and the feminine.
Even united
The
inside
desire.
of yourself.
Yeah.
Like, see what happens is you're the masculine, but he gave you a little feminine energy, and that feminine energy was inside of you at the same time, creates little conflict.
It's interesting when he's in his masculine energy, and I'm predominantly in my masculine energy. It almost becomes a magnet turned the opposite way, right? Oh,
Gives
right.
those tensions and vibration. Yes.
Normally, it's me that has to. He's not going to agree with this, but normally it's me that has to turn around. But it's interesting. I finally just to come out of conflict will just be like, okay, you know what I mean, and then try to finish the process working it out, right? When he's in his more passionate, loving energy,
Yeah.
right? That's very passionate to me. That awakens my intimacy side, right? Um, I would suggest um, for anybody watching when it comes to the female or the feminine energy initiating, right? For sure, always. There are circumstances, right, that prevent me a lot of times personally from making a first move, from saying the first words, or from, touching him first. There was some sexual abuse involved, and I don't. There's still things inside of me, and I'm no longer a victim. I'm a survivor of that. But we still have those little quirks about us, right? Where I don't want to initiate that energy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But if he comes and initiates it, it's because my twin or my husband wants to be with me. He wants to embrace me in that way. You know what I mean? So there's special circumstances, so it's hard to generalize.
Yeah.
Where females should always be initiating, and I believe that they should, right? Just as much as males are, all over, right? I think women should be too, but there are circumstances that prevent both men and women from doing that. So if you're in a situation where you have both wounded energies, right, and who are trying to both be in their masculine or their feminine, and at the same time, it's gonna become a big power struggle.
Big power struggle.
Big power struggle.
The divine has to have both, and actually, the divine has to have all four. The way that I see it as an alien, part of this connection is that
Yeah.
there's a masculine positive, masculine negative, a female positive, a female negative. All four of these are in you.
Yes.
And they're
Yes.
developed in you already in this connection, and all four of them don't necessarily get along. So when she could be in masculine positive, I could be in masculine negative. That creates a spark that creates movement. But if we're both masculine positive, dead. It becomes a standstill.
Then we're boxing.
We're boxing. Even if we're in, because positive and negative have to go together to spark.
Yeah.
You have to have both. So you have to choose wisely. If I notice that we flow much better when there's feminine negative and masculine positive. And she usually likes to carry the masculine positive, and I can carry the feminine negative.
Yeah.
We flow and we connect much stronger in those spaces, but then there's the other spaces where I can be masculine positive, then she could be feminine negative. But sometimes you have feminine positive and masculine positive, and it's like it's a standstill. There's always going to be those thought patterns and processes you learn that affect each one of those.
Yeah.
So depending on how we interact with each other will determine which one of those comes out.
So those basically like a regular relationship, but it's just on different, higher, bigger scale of what you're trying to explain. Most of the twins, this is the last question. Most of the twins are basically not in union. What would you be your words to them?
Union with yourself first.
Union starts with you.
The letter. But you too. Yeah. But I would say the biggest thing, stop running. Stop. If you're telling yourself you're chasing, you're running. If you tell yourself you're
We're
chasing,
all running.
yeah, right. It kind of goes
We're
back and
all
forth.
running. Even we are running. Even
Yeah.
we run. Still.
And we're in union.
Yeah.
Man, I mean,
Yeah.
it's still gonna.
So
happen.
basically, even if you're in a union, it still has some issues
Oh,
to solve.
It's the communication is the key.
Communication is the key.
You,
Okay.
if you can communicate, because we've actually realized that sometimes we can communicate with our hearts closed, then we can communicate with our hearts open.
Okay.
There's two different
It
modes.
depends on who you want that day.
Yeah.
Oh wow! Depends on the energy field. Okay, depends on the mood. You can play Mercury retrograde. Would you play Mercury retrograde?
We don't participate.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, guys, appreciate. Thank you so much for this interview. Thank you so much for everything that you did this week, and I'm so grateful that you guys invited me here to spend the Thanksgiving with you. And guys, thank you so much for watching this video. You know me, I would love to hear your comments, and I hope this video helping you out in your own journey. And guys, as you know, be love.